Hey everybody, we're going to be looking at the American frontier, the lecture, the West, place or process. So really pay attention to the words place and then process. It's really significant here because what we're talking about when we look at the West is many perspectives at looking at it. At one, it's America's creation myth, right? This is where kind of American ideals and virtues and values were forged into making what it means to be a good American, right? And so in that sense, it's very much a process. On the other sense, though, it was a place where actual human beings lived, a place where human beings collided, where cultures collided, where there was lots of violence, lots of destruction, and lots of tragedy. So that's what I want to kind of give you the big picture before we get into the specifics of this learning objective. So learning objective 1 has us looking at the significance of the West and looking at the 6 major values of the West. So a lot of this, what we're looking at in this learning objective is the West as a process, not as a place specifically, but as a process. So with learning objective 1, what we're looking at is basically providing a brief discussion looking at the significance of the frontier in American history. So be sure to be able to identify the 6 major values that come from the experience of the frontier. And so what were those 6 major values is what we're going to take a look at here. So the first things we want to know before we get into the significance of these values and what they were is that the frontier was not so much a section of the country, but more a state of mind that influenced the creation of what we see as the American individual, right? So it was a state of mind for the American people. And so in the West as an environment produced a new set of values which reinforce and strengthen the worth of the individual within American society. The state of mind represents America's West and attitudes, which came out of the American experience of the frontier. So these 6 major values that came out of that experience is what we're going to take a look at. So the first major value of the West was opportunity, right? And so opportunity equals the frontier equals opportunity. So up until 1890, according to this historical theory, the frontier was mostly landed, right? And it gave those who had the will and the ability and the energy the opportunity to survive and to succeed in the American environment. The second major value that comes out of the West is social mobility, right? The frontier gave the opportunity to change class, right? Going from poor to middle class to possibly rich, right? Our society encourages people to make the change if they have the ability. This is what has made the United States unique, and the opportunity to change class has been the driving force behind American development. And number 3 is social Darwinism. So having the ability to adjust to the environment or survival of the fittest. To survive in the frontier, one needed the ability to physically adjust to the harshness of the environment, whether that be a landed or a business, an industrial frontier. So social Darwinism is the third major value that comes out of the West. So the fourth major value to come out of the West is pragmatism, or being practical, right? So to adjust to the environment, you had to be practical, flexible, do what works within this new environment that you're in, right? And so you're not going to rely on building log cabins, for instance, in the American Great Plains, right? You might do something like this, living in a sod house, mainly made out of mud and buffalo and cow dung, right? People living proudly in good old-fashioned American shite. So the fifth major value to come out of the West was the rugged individual, right? So the rugged individual was the self-made man who was self-reliant, had the inner strength to do what was necessary to survive out in the harsh environment of the American West. And finally, the sixth major value to come out of the West was a concept called laissez-faire, which literally means hands off in French, right? So this is a part of the West where there is no hierarchy, there's no structure, there is no government. So it gives that rugged individual who's pragmatic enough, who has the will to survive, who exhibits survival of the fittest, social Darwinism, that gives that individual the ability not only to survive, but to thrive in the American West. So laissez-faire is the sixth major value to come out of the West. Okay, just to recap, the six major values of the American West that grew out of the West when we look at West as a process is opportunity, which equals frontier. So again, up until the 1890s, frontier was mostly landed, which gave opportunity to those who had the will and the ability to survive. Then you had social mobility. The frontier gave people the opportunity to change class. Our society encourages people to make this change if they have the ability to do so. Also, you have social Darwinism, having the ability to adjust to the environment, or survival of the fittest. To survive in the frontier, one needed the ability to physically adjust to the harshness of the environment, whether that be the landed frontier or the business opportunities of the industrial frontier. 4, pragmatism, being practical, the ability to adjust to the environment. You had to be practical, flexible, and do what works. 5th, rugged individualism. The rugged individual, or the self-made man, was self-reliant and had the inner strength that allowed him to survive in a harsh environment. And finally, you have laissez-faire, so hands off. In the landed frontier, there was no structure to society to regulate or protect the individual. Thus, with the available land, there was opportunity for those rugged individuals who were pragmatic enough to adjust to the environment.